So you may have heard in the clip in the news, Valerie Plante talking about a meeting, I guess, personally with some of the terrasse owners on Peel Street and other places perhaps as well, about I'm not sure what. I thought we already had rules in place for terrace owners. I'm not sure that they changed this year from any other year. This is all, of course, going back to Friday night when I don't know who, some police, some people in the fire department, we're still not sure exactly who, told restaurant owners who had terraces up on Peel Street on Grand Prix weekend while people were dining that they would have to shut down. And we have heard, again, I'm still, maybe I missed this. Maybe, Jim, you can tell me, have you heard an actual apology from the mayor, from Montreal Mayor Valerie Plante?
Good afternoon, Aaron. Thank you for having me. I haven't heard anything, actually.
Okay.
What we've seen is a complete disconnect, as I've said in the past, and we're always reacting to a situation and coming out in front of the press and saying all the words that we think matter. However, nothing ever changes. And here's a perfect situation where we forget, as the administration of Montreal does, who is working for who. It seems that the client, the resident, the restaurateur, etc., works for the city administration when it should be the other way around. Almost scolding. I'm surprised they didn't call the army in to dismantle these tents here, because this was a ridiculous show of force. When we knew 2 weeks ago, once this restaurant was visited, if it was a safety issue, understanding that safety supersedes everything. We know that if it is a safety issue, then we have to react immediately in every community across the board. And here 2 weeks ago, they discovered that it was a safety issue from what they claim. Well, why do you leave it for 2 weeks, and then, Friday night at 9 p.m., Grand Prix weekend, when it's bustling with tourists and everyone that's trying to enjoy themselves, all of a sudden dismantle on the spot these types of facilities? It's absolutely ridiculous that it has to get to this. And then what's worse is the mayor comes out in front of the press with no answers, saying that there's a postmortem plan. Of course a postmortem should be planned. But we're even asking and going further and saying, well, we want a plenary held at City Council with the Ville-Marie Borough and the fire department to explain not only this situation, but how many of these have they had in the past that we never hear of. And so this is a very serious issue in terms of how they conduct business in the city of Montreal. And we kind of knew this because we see how it works. But, this was a shock not only to us, but to the residents and the folks that were visiting that terrace to begin with.
By way of introduction, ladies and gentlemen, this is Jim Beis. He's the mayor. I should have got to that. The mayor of Pierrefonds-Roxboro, member of Ensemble Montreal, the opposition at City Hall. Jim, what's a plenary?
Plenary is when we ask at City Council. We're holding City Council next Monday and Tuesday, in chambers at City Hall in Montreal, as we do every month. And so what we ask on occasion is to have the different stakeholders, the partner associations, the paramunicipal, to present themselves and give us, for example, a brief on not only the situation that occurred, but also allow for us to ask them further questions to get more clarity in terms of how they operate day to day. And so that will allow the elected body to understand how it works in Montreal for this not to happen again and ask the pertinent questions.
I said yesterday in reaction to the story, if I believed in conspiracy theories, which I don't, I would have had to ask myself when this happened, and we all know now exactly what, right? They showed up in the middle of business on a Friday night on Grand Prix weekend, as everyone knows. It would seem to me that might have been done with an idea to embarrass someone. And if you were going to embarrass someone, it would seem to me that might be the mayor, because she's the mayor, and that's also her borough, by the way, Ville-Marie. You want to buy into any kind of conspiracy here as to why you think this happened?
Look, I can't begin to guess on the reasons why it happened. It could be a multitude of reasons why that happened. I don't know if I would go that far, but what I do know is that when it does hit the fan, where is the mayor? I mean, yesterday she sent out her executive member for the Ville-Marie Borough to go in front of the press. Well, where was she? You know where she was? At the same place where she is during council meetings, when she's very rarely in chambers, very rarely, if ever, answers any questions from the public or from the opposition, and is exactly the same thing yesterday, up until where we heard that she was holding a post-mortem, where we found out that two officials were dismissed. And so this is go as you go with the flow and you decide as you go what the decision will be. And this is the kind of administration that we've seen. Again, I don't want to play the political card here, but we had members of our team visit the terraces along that street, and we were told at that time, and this goes back several months, and we were told that they were working with the administration at the time at Ville Marie to make everything work out. And if it was 58 centimeters, certainly, you don't wait 2 weeks before the busiest weekend of the year to mobilize your teams to dismantle these facilities. I mean, it's terrible what happened for Montreal. We don't have to go far, Aaron, to see the state of Montreal. We talk with residents. We know that what the Chamber of Commerce of Montreal has said. We know how the city is being run right now, and it is absolutely embarrassing for the city of Montreal, second biggest city of Canada, to be in this situation.
So, Jim, you don't want to, take this politically, so I will, and I will ask you. I was just talking about this early on in the show, and just at random, someone said, or someone came up with this idea. The only person that I think could, in fact, run and could maybe make it an interesting fight is someone who said he's not interested, and that's Jim Beis, the mayor of Pierrefonds-Roxboro. Fluently bilingual, speaks his mind, smart, he's a Kiss fan. He's got a lot of things going for him, but no, doesn't seem to be interested right now. Of course, interested right now doesn't mean you won't be interested in a year from now. Just a random caller there, Jim, who suggested perhaps, because I heard today from Michel Leblanc in the Chamber of Commerce that he believes there will be several people of interest who may run against Valérie Plante next November. What do you think?
There has to be, and that's a pretty comical and entertaining message that I just heard, and I have to laugh. But look, nothing's off the table for anybody, and again, if we want to stay political, we know now after 7 years for the increase of taxes, everything that's been imposed, the increase in operating budget in the city of Montreal that's gone up to skyrocketed since we were there at $5.2 billion to almost $7 billion, with nothing really in return for the residents. Taxes that have gone up more than ever, almost historic rates. For what? And then we find ourselves every single time somebody asks, and again, let me be clear here, running a city and being in positions that we're in is never perfect, and it's never easy. However, we also pride ourselves on customer service. And here is an example where you have business owners that are already suffering, Aaron. The lady was in tears. How could you not be touched by this? And then we have, administrators that come in and they put on their hats and their title on their forehead, and they impose, the letter of the law without going any further to try to examine. And then you have an administration in the back, the political entity of the administration in Montreal, that sits back and waits until they're put up against the wall, and then they go in front of the cameras and they say whatever they need to say to get out of it. The folks have to understand, and people have to go out and vote next time, more than 35%, Aaron, because 3 out of 10 of us vote. And we get what we get. So if people want serious change, find out who the candidates will be as we move forward and vote for the right people to try to bring a change in Montreal and bring it back to the pride that we had once upon a time.
For a guy who doesn't want to run for mayor, that was a pretty good political speech there, Jim. I'm just saying. And I will tell you that while you were saying that, I'm not lying. Someone just sent in a text, and I want to read it to you. It says, Aaron, do what you need to do, but make this man the mayor of Montreal. You're not. I want to understand, Jim. You're not ruling out now, if I understand, right? You're not saying never, never. You're saying not right now. Is that right?
I've learned in my life, Aaron,
never say never.
Say never.
Okay.
You never say never.
But you'd consider it.
Look, I think that everybody that knows me knows that I work, I never work with the title, I work for the people. And this is how it always has to be. Again, never perfect, never easy, but it has to be a concerted effort to bring about change and do the right thing for the people that you serve. And so this is the opposite of this administration. This administration tells you what to do, and they expect you to follow, and they don't listen to anybody. And they can talk about consultations all they want, but they're the first never to listen to consultations when they have them. And so, look, it's concerning with what's happening. And again, never say never. I mean, there'll be a lot of folks that'll come out and will present themselves when the time comes. There'll be a leadership race at the time for our party, not to mention any others. And then when that decision is to be made, certainly the people will pick the right person to take that role. But Montreal is in a very difficult situation right now. Again, you don't have to go far. Michel Leblanc has spoken about it many times. I mean, you see the business community what's suffering. You see the homeless on the streets. You see the lack of affordable housing and social housing. We look at the public transport options that they keep boasting about that never brings public transit to the people that need it most, particularly in the outskirts of Montreal like us, and in the east, in the north, and so on. And so we know all the issues. We have them all listed. And we also know in our individual communities, although it may not always be perfect, we work for the citizens. And so this is something that they've forgotten, it seems, along the way. And the titles of being the positions that they are and they hold completely have clouded their vision of what public service is.
All right. We've got to leave it there. I'm running out of time. Jim, thank you. Mr. Mayor in Waiting, we appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Aaron. You be well, everyone.
You take good care.